What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Total Takedown. This for UFC Vegas 69. We are breaking down these fights again. We're talking overs and unders, how long we think they will last, and whether or not there's any value on a total as opposed to picking a side, which frankly, this week, that might be the move because all of these fighters, I mean, let's be honest, every single fight on this card, except for maybe the main event, we probably wouldn't be betting if it was on any other card. Like, if there were 8 or 10 other fights happening, every single fight on this card would be the one we're like, we could probably pass on that one. So buckle up. This is a crazy week. We're going to talk about these totals. Do me a favor, hit the like button here, subscribe at Pub Sports Radio. Consider becoming a member if you haven't already done that. The lines are powered by Superbook Sports. Let's go ahead and get on into it. First fight of the night, we've got Clayton Carpenter taking on Juan Milo Ronderos, and we've got a 2.5. Total is over 2.5 plus 140, under 2.5 minus 160. And basically, it's Clayton Carpenter inside the distance is kind of the vibe I'm getting from everybody around Twitter. So I get wanting violence here. First fight of the night. Usually they're kind of set up to kick off with a bang. So I can definitely see that. But man, Clayton Carpenter's like physical control, his wrestling, that's something he goes to a lot. He goes to it often. I called Clayton Carpenter by decision personally. It's one of those things where I'm a little worried still about his striking. I think he may have to actually rely on his grappling some to get his career going here in the UFC. And while Ronderos isn't a stud by any means, he definitely at least knows his way around the cage. I'm not quite sure that Clayton is going to run straight through him. I'd be leaning over. I'd be looking at the over 2.5 at plus 140 here for this first fight of the night. Gorimbo Thiba taking on AJ Fletcher. 2.5 is the total again. The over 2.5 is plus 135. The under 2.5 is minus 155. This is one where I'd look more for violence. AJ Fletcher has shown in his last couple fights, he does look for that finish. He's also a very powerful wrestler. He does like to take people down and get on top of them, but he looks for those finishes. He looks for subs. He looks for TKOs. He was looking fantastic on the feet against Angelusa in his last fight. Thiba, he's a wild man on the feet. He throws heavy, high kicks. He mixes in the takedowns and the wrestling as well. The big thing for me is he leaves his neck hanging out there. I think AJ can snatch that thing and finish this by sub. So both these guys probably have a path to being the finisher on the feet, and I do think there's opportunity for a finish on the mat. I'll say under 2.5, minus 155. Evan Elder and Nazim Sadikov, my bad. I was not prepared for that name today for some reason. Total set at 2.5 again. The over is minus 115. The under is minus 105. So we've got just ever so slight juice to this thing going over. And when I broke down Nazim, I said he feels a whole heck of a lot like the Longo Wyman fighters we've seen in the past. He just seems like a more durable version of them. So I can see him getting into a scrap with Evan Elder and being able to hold up, not having the chin issues of someone like, we've seen spots from Matt Frivola where he can get starched. And I don't know that Nazim has those same durability problems, but he also has not been tested at the UFC level. So we're going to have to kind of wait and see on that. Evan Elder, this guy is a finisher at this weight class. He's dropping back down to his normal weight after, making a short notice UFC debut the last time out. So I think that'll add to his offensive output. He has been a finisher at this weight class in the past. I think he can be that here in the UFC as well. He's got that big body kick. It seems like he hits really hard. I think these two are going to stand and bang. I would look under. Now, this could be one of those ones where they bang it out and you're like, oh my God, how did I not cash that under 2.5? Because they both drag it to the finish line somehow, hanging in there, being tough, being durable. I could see that taking place. This is not a total that I want to bet on, but just based on the way these guys fight, I gotta say under 2.5 at minus 105. Philip Lin's taking on OSP, another 2.5 for your pleasure here. Over 2.5 is minus 120. The under 2.5 is plus 100, so you can get a nice plus price tag. And frankly, I can see this fight finishing almost any sort of way. It could be an old man sloppy layup against each other, hang on the fence type of grappling match where both guys are out of gas 5 minutes in. It could also be another rangy, controlled, low pace, plodding style of striking matchup that we saw in OSP's last fight. And frankly, I could see either one of these guys finishing at any point in time. Philip Lins has decent boxing. He's got fast hands. OSP is old. He can be clipped and finished. Philip Lins has a bad chin. OSP is known for having some decent power and good counter shots. So This one could go over, it could go under. You don't want to be anywhere near this total. I'm going to say under, personally. I think Philip Lins is going to struggle with the grappling, and I think when that happens, it will be more of a striking matchup, and it's just a matter of time before he either overextends and clips OSP with a big shot, or OSP catches him with a counter. I also wouldn't be surprised if OSP got on top of Philip Lins after like a failed takedown attempt or something like that. I'm going to say under 2.5, plus 100. Minimal confidence, because this one really could go any which way. We've got Khusein Askhabov taking on Jamal Emmers. Total set at 2.5. Yet again, the over is minus 115. The under is minus 105. And I kind of like that over. This is another fight, though, with big question marks. I mean, Askhabov has been out of competition for 3 straight years, so we're going to see a new version of him. He's not going to look necessarily just like he did on the tape that you have been studying. Jamal Emmers has a history of making some of the lowest fight IQ decisions in cage we have ever seen. But he's a finisher. He's a tough guy. He's got big hands. He's fast. He hits hard. And the same could be said about Askhabov. I think we could get a decent striking matchup here in this fight. But if Emmers starts losing that striking matchup on the feet, or even if he just wants to seal off some rounds, he's got that wrestling background. He could take Askhabov down at pretty much any point in time and turn this into a wrestling matchup, which could force the over. So again, not one that I'm confident on at all. But I could see this being a technical striking matchup where they're playing around with each other and trying to gauge the range and the distance, respecting each other's power. I could also see it being a grappling matchup where Emmers doesn't want to involve the feet, and this thing could slide over that way. So I'll say over 2.5 at minus 115. Mayra Bueno Silva taking on Lina, the elbow queen, Länsberg. The 2.5 yet again. Over 2.5 is minus 190. Under 2.5 is plus 140. This is a short number for women's MMA. It seems like you would just want to hammer the over in this kind of a spot because we see these women divisions go to a full 15 minute every single time in and out. Usually you got to pay minus 300 or so for that pleasure. I'm not so sure, though, because Mayra Bueno Silva is a flawed fighter. She is very gifted offensively. She doesn't grapple as much as we'd like to see, but that submission game is something. She ties people into pretzels every time she hits the ground with them, and then she hits really hard on the feet. But she's a little low volume. What we've seen in the past is if you don't finish Lina Länsberg, she will turn the tables on you, go full Homer Simpson, turn around and start punching you in the mouth, and she almost TKOs almost everybody she's in there with. She's turning 41, though, so this is a spot where she's finally getting older, and if she has the opportunity, Mayra Silva could be in some trouble from a big power shot, but I also think it's a showcase spot where Mayra Silva really should just be able to get a win over a notable name who's an aged veteran, and God forbid, if she were to grapple, this thing could be over in 30 seconds. So I'll say under 2.5 at plus 140. I don't think we're getting a good number, though, so I'm probably not going to bet that one. Alexander Hernandez taking on Jim Miller, a 1.5 total. Finally, something different to talk about. Over 1.5, minus 130, under 1.5, plus 110. And this is a tough one for me because Jim Miller is a guy that likes to force the action. He'll play BJJ off of his back, but he'll get into a slugfest on the feet. Alexander Hernandez, we have seen that vaunted power on the feet. He is dangerous early, and if he can't get people out of there, he does slow down. He does tend to tire out, but he's moving back up to 155, which should improve his gas tank just ever so slightly. And Jim Miller is not the gas fighter that you want. He's not the guy that's going to step on the pedal and mess his opponent up and push them and break them. That's really not his style. He is a slick finisher. He probably is the better mixed martial artist out of the two, however, obviously with the veteran savvy that he brings to the table. But I think there's a chance Alexander Hernandez just nullifies him. I could see what he did to OAM, pulling that wrestling out of his back pocket here. His back is against the wall. He's coming off another knockout loss. He's been hopping divisions. He wants to keep his job, and he's taking on an elder statesman here in the UFC. This is a get a win and get out of dodge spot for Alexander Hernandez. If he doesn't catch Jim Miller with something big early, I think he's going to close the distance, take him down, and just sit up shop in his guard and hang around. I could see this easily going the full 15 minutes. Alexander Hernandez by decision. The over 1.5 at minus 130 doesn't seem so bad to me. The only issue with that is if Jim Miller decides to be the one pushing the pace, this could end early because we've seen him both kill and be killed very early in fights, and Alexander Hernandez is known for that fast twitch knockout power. If he catches Jim Miller, I don't think Jim can recover from that kind of a power shot, so this one could be over early. As much as I can predict the over and say maybe Hernandez by decision, I don't think I'm betting it. So that's going to be one I'm just going to leave alone. Marcin Prachnio taking on Will Knight, my guy Thick Willie. Total set at 2.5 for this one. Over 2.5 is plus 135. Under 2.5 minus 155. And I should probably bet this under. I've been kind of looking at this one all week, deciding if I want to bet my guy Will straight or if I want to go for violence and go under. Maybe I just do both at this point. I'm not sure. This card has me all tied in knots. The under 2.5 at minus 155 makes a ton of sense. Marcin Prachnio has no chin on him whatsoever. We've seen him wobbled and hurt, and I don't know how he made it to decision a couple times in the UFC. He should have been out of there on multiple occasions. People just don't follow up for that kill shot. Will Knight's got crazy power. Like, this guy is so big, so muscly. He's explosive, and when he lands, he takes people's heads off. He could easily come out with a chip on his shoulder and just blow straight through Marcin Prachnio in this spot. Now, if he can't do that, Marcin Prachnio has deadly leg kicks. Will doesn't check them very often, and we've seen him get caught by a couple head kicks already here in the UFC. So if Prachnio can mind the range and keep this thing at distance, we just saw Will Knight get knocked out by Devin Clark. I see no reason why Marcin Prachnio can't also KO somebody who can get knocked out by Devin Clark. So I think under 2.5 makes a whole lot of sense here. The prediction is obviously going to be Will Knight. It's going to be Will Knight by knockout, but I can see paths where Marcin can also get this thing done. So under 2.5, that's the move. Jamal Pogues taking on Josh Parisian, a 2.5 here. Over 2.5 is minus 140. Under 2.5 is plus 120. The over 2.5 makes some sense because Josh Parisian has to be on top of his opponent to get a TKO victory. That's the only way that takes place. He can't knock anybody out on the feet. Jamal Pogues seems to be kind of the same story. Like, he could knock people out on the feet, but he goes full Sean Strickland on us and just jabs people's faces off for 15 minutes, and that's really all he brings to the table, which is weird since he's a 205er who's kind of moonlighting at heavyweight. You'd think he would have more activity, more speed, more gas, but he just really doesn't do anything. And even when he goes to the grappling, he just gets on top of people. So Pogues could finish this fight. Parisian could finish this fight. He's fighting a younger, smaller man. Like, it's there, it's possible, but these guys really aren't finishers. So I would say over 2.5. I'm not touching that total, not even for a second. Zach Pauga taking on Jordan Wright, the Beverly Hills Ninja. We've got a 1.5, and this is another one where I might as well break out the tinfoil cap here, folks. Under 1.5 is minus 175, and that's Jordan Wright's MO. Whether he wins or loses in the UFC, it's always the under 1.5. Now, Zach is dropping down from heavyweight for this fight. You got Jordan Wright going up from 185, but Jordan Wright's been talking a lot about his wrestling, and we saw it in his last couple of fights. He's really been working on it. He's trying to use that wrestling. He doesn't want to stand out there and bang and get starched by people. He wants to get out there and find an opportunity to use a different skill set so he doesn't get chinned every single fight, and also keep his UFC job. But he's taking on a much larger human being, a guy that even if he didn't belong necessarily at heavyweight, has no problem blowing up to heavyweight. So this is going to be an intriguing spot. Is he big enough? Is he strong enough? Can he take down Zach? I'm not sure. Zach, I've said it a couple times, his style, the way he fights, it really reminds me of Chris Action Man Curtis. Obviously a poor man's Action Man Curtis, but he does the same thing. He likes to attack the body, he keeps his hips back, he's low volume, he picks his shots, but all those things lead me to an over. If Jordan Wright has even a little bit better durability because he's up a weight class and because he's taking his time in grappling rather than causing a car crash in that first round, this fight lasts a little longer. He's taking on an opponent who's a bit slower, a guy who likes to be patient, a guy who doesn't press the issue and looks to defend the takedowns. That helps the over. I'm so tempted here. Over 1.5, plus 155. I don't want to lay minus 175 on the under, and I sure as hell do not want to go over in a Jordan Wright fight, but I think this fight sets up for all those tools to be there. The problem is, you can't trust Wright's chin to get you there, because he could get clipped with the smallest shot coming in, and that could just be rip it's over. Like, you made the right read, it was headed that way, and he just gets caught. So, I'm going to predict the over 1.5. I'm not sure I've got the balls to sack up and take it. You know, frankly, I'm not even going to say that because there are times where I do sack up and I do have the balls to make crazy plays like this, but this entire card is so sketched. I don't think it's a matter of balls. I think it's smart of me to avoid some of these fights, quite frankly. Main event time. You've got Erin Blanchfield taking on Jéssica Andrade. Another 2.5 here for this total. The over 2.5 is minus 115. The under 2.5 is minus 105. And I think Erin Blanchfield is obviously going to look to wrestle as soon as she possibly can. Now, will she be as dominant as Valentina Shevchenko on the mat with Jéssica Andrade? Maybe. Maybe. I do think she's a future title challenger, but she's also only 23 years old. Not sure she's quite at that level just yet. If she gets the grappling going but can't quite find her way to the crucifix or find her way to a submission, which Andrade is very hard to finish, this thing goes over that 2.5. And I don't know what her cardio looks like in the championship rounds. A 5-round fight, that's always a big question for a young contender taking that first step up. Jéssica Andrade, if this is in her wheelhouse, she's nuking the body of Erin Blanchfield. She's keeping her hips back. She's keeping the distance. She's using her speed, dancing around the cage and finding opportunities to strike. It could be over in a hurry because we haven't seen Erin Blanchfield take shots from somebody that hits as hard as Andrade. JJ was tagging Erin Blanchfield. JJ is one of the most pillow-fisted fighters in the UFC. She does not have knockout power. If Andrade lands with some of those shots, it could be a problem. I don't want to doubt Erin Blanchfield. I don't want to doubt her chin. I don't want to doubt her heart. I don't want to doubt her ability to pressure and finish because we've seen all those on display. But this is a different level of competition. I guess I'll say over. I'll say that Erin gets some work in wrestling, whether or not that leads her to a finish or a decision, or Andrade is able to weather the storm and maybe come back later in the fight. I don't think this thing is going to be over super early. I think we do get a decent main event here in this spot, no matter who ends up getting the win. And we're in for a good one. Over 2.5, minus 115 in the main event. That's the total takedown, folks. This week, tread lightly, be careful. Good luck on all your degenerate action out there, and let's roll. Also, go Yotes. Taking out the Lightning 1-0 last night. Woo! That was a good time. Have a good one. See you later.